This presentation is Effective Strategies for Farmed Animals, and I'm just going to bring the panel up and we'll jump right into it. We have Bruce Friedrich, who worked at PETA for 13 years as a vice president. He now directs the policy work for Farm Sanctuary, including our Someone Not Something project. He reaches out to people on a grassroots level and also through major media. He recently had something published in the LA Times on the Pope saying we should not hurt animals. So come on up, Bruce. I'm just going to introduce. Erica Meyer is our next panelist. She is the executive director of Compassion Over Killing, which does excellent work to reach out to mainstream food retailers to get them to offer more vegan food, making it more accessible. She started actually doing animal protection work as an investigator protecting animals at a shelter, like just in the streets where animals are mistreated. So real on-the-ground experience, which is very cool. And next is Michael Weberman, who's the executive director of Farm, who's done an incredible job with his team with this conference, which I believe is the biggest it's ever been, by far. So excellent work, and he speaks in schools, does education, and is also, I understand, going to be traveling internationally very soon. So we've got a very esteemed panel here that's going to be talking about effective strategies for helping animals who are exploited in the animal agriculture world. And our first presentation is from Bruce Friedrich. So Bruce.
Hello. Good morning. I am amazed to see so many people here so early on a Sunday morning after everybody was out partying last night. Did everybody enjoy the banquet, enjoy the memorials, everything else that happened last night? Yeah. So just apropos of nothing before we get started, did people hear that Bill Gates bought the Seattle Times this morning? Yeah, he buys it every morning. A lot of you have heard that joke before, but Alex Hershev just insisted that I tell it, so. What am I going to do? I want to start with a little poll. Actually, Alex insisted that I not tell it, so sorry, Alex. It's like the one condition of my coming up here, and I violated it, and I'm really sorry. He's back there looking not happy. I want to start with a poll. We're going to do a 5-step, how do you feel about being vegan? We're going to go from the worst to the best. And if you're not vegan, I know that multiple people have said that all your past sins are forgiven. Just from here on out, please no more animal products. But for those of you who are vegan, even if you're newly vegan, even if today is your first vegan day, how do you feel so far? You feel really bad about being vegan? It sucks, but you're weathering it? No, okay. Kind of bad. I feel not that, okay. Neutral about being vegan. I could take it, I could leave it. I'm living according to my values, and that's nice, but I can't eat cheese pizza, and that's not. Anybody neutral? No, okay. There's one more after this. Who feels pretty awesome about being vegan? There's one more. Put your hands down. Who feels totally flippin' awesome about being vegan? Yeah! Of course we do. Being vegan means that every single time we sit down to eat, we're making a decision about who we are in the world. We're choosing mercy over misery. We're choosing compassion over cruelty. We are comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. Every single time we sit down to eat, we're living our values by being vegan. And I think that all of you do and should feel totally flippin' awesome about being vegan, because veganism feels totally flippin' awesome. Don't you love this slide? You're not supposed to have slides that are just text, but this is almost an image that's not just text. The thing about being vegan is that you save about 35 land animals every single year as a vegan, and more than 100 sea animals every single year being vegan. And we should feel spectacular about that. But what I'm going to talk about a little bit about is personal advocacy and the fact that you as a vegan, saving 100 animals a year conservatively, every time you influence somebody else to adopt a vegan diet, your entire lifetime as a vegan, you've just doubled your impact. You know, you won't see that person every day, you won't hear from them every day, but for the rest of their lives, because of you, 3 or more times a day, they're also going to be choosing compassion over cruelty. They're also going to be choosing mercy over misery. So advocacy, and especially effective advocacy, exponential. That person will influence more people to go vegan, and more and more and more. Every single interaction that we have is the opportunity to double our entire lifetime impact on behalf of animals as a vegan. I want to talk about 3 easy things that we advocate at Farm Sanctuary that I think are among the easiest and best things that all of us can do in our individual advocacy. The first one is effortless advocacy. I see an awful lot of people in this room wearing animal rights t-shirts, and I hope that you are wearing those animal rights t-shirts out into the wider world and not just to an animal rights conference. We already agree with you. But I resonate with what Vita said when she was up here speaking. Go out there and buy animal rights t-shirts, find the ones that you think are going to be conversation starters, and wear them into the wider world. If you've currently in your closet got shirts that say, Abercrombie and Fitch, I'm with stupid, take them to the Goodwill. No, it was you, Michael. Take them to the Goodwill and replace them with animal rights t-shirts. The second one is, does this one have one? Farm does not do this. No, I'm sure this is a loaner laptop. If you, like an awful lot of us in the animal rights community, spend an awful lot of time in a coffee shop, put animal rights bumper stickers, 1 or 2, onto the back of your laptop. And people will see you there working, and it's a little positive hit, like the t-shirt. Every time somebody sees you in a t-shirt, it's a little positive hit, and it serves to normalize the concept of being an animal rights activist. The same thing with bumper stickers, both on your car and on your laptop. This is my favorite car magnet, and you can talk to the people at Mercy for Animals table about getting 2 of these to put on opposite sides of your car. That's my lovely wife in our car with the Why Love One But Eat the Other magnet on the side of our car, and we've got that on both sides, and it's amazing how many people see the magnet and give a thumbs up, or they sort of look confused, and we wave at them, and we go, right, right? An awful lot of groups embrace leafleting because leafleting is effective. It's a way, I'm convinced that animal rights is about educating people. Leafleting is one way. In an hour in DC at a metro stop during rush hour, you can pass out 300, 400 leaflets, and you go down to the bottom of the metro stop, and people are coming down the escalator, everybody's reading them. They're learning the information that we know already about both why and how to adopt a vegan diet. The Humane League labs crunched the numbers, and they found that passing out 3 leaflets will cause 1 person to reduce their consumption of animal products, 12 leaflets, and they will significantly reduce their chicken consumption, 30 leaflets, and somebody goes vegetarian. That is really quite remarkable. Any of us in this room, if we're driving along and we see an injured animal on the side of the road, 100% of us are going to stop and help that animal. Well, there are 9 billion injured animals, metaphorically, on the side of the road. And if you go pass out, 100 leaflets in an hour, which you can do on a college campus, or 400 leaflets in an hour, which you can do at a metro stop, you can save an awful lot of those injured animals. One of my favorite programs is Vegan Outreach's program, Adopt a College, and I encourage people, everybody in this room lives in a city that has at least 1 college. This is also a great way of community building if somebody's already sponsored your college. But go to the Vegan Outreach table and sign up to Adopt a College and pass out leaflets on the college campus. It also allows people to create community because colleges tend to be fairly insular, and as more and more people adopt a vegetarian or a vegan diet or reduce their meat consumption, they can meet other people because the community is so insular. And then the last one is the vegetarian starter kit stands. My wife and I, if you've been wandering around Washington, D.C., you might have seen one of the 40 stands that we have set up around the city. If you buy the stand, there are multiple groups, including People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which will give you unlimited kits. So you get the stand, that one costs about $100, that one costs about $30 if you're going to put it like in a coffee shop that you frequent, and people take them. And this is sort of leafleting on steroids because 100% of the people who take the guide actually want to learn about vegetarianism or veganism. Also, as people drive around Washington, D.C., there are 40 of the stands like that one. And so people see vegan, 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 and it serves to normalize. It's sort of free advertising. And about 1,000 people per week take the kits out of the 40 stands that we have sitting around Washington, D.C. Also want to give so those are 3 things that any individual can do that will save thousands of animals a year from the horrors that if you've gone to any of the farm animal panels, you know are going on. 3 quick advocacy tips. The first one is, you saw the chart about how empowered we should all feel about advocacy. Every interaction we have is the capacity to save 100 animals a year if that person is your standard meat eater. The converse of that is true also. If we're not as effective as we could be, we're really letting animals down. So who here, you told somebody that you're vegan or vegetarian and they say, what about abortion? Yeah, if you didn't raise your hand, you're just not awake yet. Who has heard, what about protein? Where do you get your protein? Yeah, my shouting into the microphone is waking people up. But plants feel pain. What about the screaming broccoli? Yeah, there are really like 9 questions that represent about 99.5% of what people say when they find out that you're vegan or vegetarian. We owe it to animals to have what we consider to be the most effective and the most practiced responses to those questions. Because this is true, and it should be empowering, but this is true, and it should also make us feel a sense of responsibility to be able to have conversations with people in as effective a way as possible. This is Harvard Business School. I think it costs about $170,000 to go through Harvard Business School. Lots and lots of people apply. Very few people get in. There are probably 150 business schools around the country. And pretty much everybody who works in business has paid $150,000 to $170,000 to be good at selling widgets or shirts or shoes or whatever it is that they're going to sell. We owe it to animals to take at least some time to not just do and do and do and do and do, but to sit down and figure out how we can do and do and do and do and do as effectively and as efficiently as possible. These are 3 books that I think every animal advocate should read. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Those 2 books, I would bet 99+% of everybody in business in an executive capacity has read those 2 books. And a lot of animal advocates, they see the titles of those 2 books, and they like run screaming from the titles. They really aren't as sort of mercurial as they sound. The books actually, the How to Win Friends and Influence People is sort of, all that stuff that your mom told you about being a nice person and getting along in the world, all that stuff is true. Should be the title of that book. It probably wouldn't sell as well, but that's what it's about. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People really does spend an awful lot of time talking about the need to be a part of society and giving back, which I think is nice. Getting things done is just, the subtitle is The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. I don't think in our time there's such thing as stress-free productivity. It could just be called the art of, as efficient as possible and as low stress as possible productivity. Again, too long of a title. But really, for all of you who have, 4,000 emails in your inbox, for all of you who have a really busy day, and somebody says, what did you do today? And you go, I don't remember, but I was really busy. This book is extraordinarily helpful, just completely invaluable. Nick Cooney, Matt Ball, and I have attempted to distill a lot of the messages, especially from How to Win Friends and Influence People and the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Matt and I wrote the Animal Activist Handbook. Nick Cooney wrote Change of Heart. PETA President Ingrid Newkirk says about Change of Heart, it should be mandatory reading for everyone with a good cause and a good heart. There's a lot of really interesting and powerful examples in the book. There are a lot of very interesting and powerful examples in the book about how to be as effective and efficient as possible for animals. Peter Singer said about Matt's and my book, rarely have so few pages contain so much intelligence and good advice. Get it, read it, act on it now. I figured I could just die after we got that. My life was going to be downhill from there. In any event, I hope that's true. The thing in the book has a lot of tips. It talks about the first three things that I talked about. It talks about a lot more. But the most valuable point in the book, I think, is this one. And that is that we don't need to win an argument with a meat eater. Socrates was killed for corrupting the youth of Athens through asking them questions, through seeing that society needed to be transformed in ways that they already agreed with. So we have 96% of Americans already agreeing with us, according to Gallup this last May, that animals should be legally protected from cruelty. 96% of Americans don't agree about anything. Even the libertarians think there should be laws against cruelty to animals. So our job is not to convince anybody to believe something different. Our job is to convince people to align the beliefs they already have, compassion for animals, with their actions. I speak on college campuses, and one of the things that, this is one of the slides that I put up on college campuses, I debate the debate teams on whether eating meat is ethical. And so it's generally a room full of meat eaters who have come to see the debate team slaughter the animal rights guy. And I ask people, who here would eat the cat up there on the left, Gracie? Nobody raises their hands. Even in a room full of meat eaters, nobody's going to eat the cat or the dog, Chompers. But nobody can come up with, my wife would beat you up if you wanted to eat Gracie. Nobody can come up with anything approximating a rational explanation for why it's acceptable to eat Beaky or Fiona, but not acceptable to eat Rena or Chompers. We're just going to spend the rest of our hour together looking at Rena. All right. Oh, you all like that? Okay, let's do it. Look at those eyes. Yesterday, Rachel Atchison from the Humane League said you can only post 1 or 2 posts on Facebook per day before people think you're insane. But you'd all take 9 or 10 of her every day, right? Take that, Rachel Atchison. So this is my favorite vegan t-shirt. It says, "Ask me why I'm a vegetarian," and people do ask constantly. And it used to be that somebody would ask me why I'm a vegetarian. I'd be so excited, I was just going to do a brain dump, my brain to their brain. Right? Thank you so much for asking. Animals on factory farms are treated abysmally. They cram 50,000 of them into a shed. Each bird has this much by this much space. They pump them full of drugs. They grow so quickly. They're these Franken chickens. They cram 9,000 on the back of a truck. Oh, they go slip, and the person runs away screaming. The moment they can take a breath, it's like, I'm out of here. But we don't need to do that, and it's not as effective. We don't want to do this, we want to do this. So now somebody asks me why I'm a vegetarian, and I say, thanks for asking. Are you a vegetarian? Which is a useful question. Are we swapping war stories? Or is this a really important conversation? And almost no vegetarians ever ask, so it's always somebody who's not, who's just curious about my t-shirt and why I'm a vegetarian. So I say, oh, really? Well, why not? And they're like, whoa. I asked you, now you're asking, wait, what happened? And it's really a more reasonable question if you frame it just slightly differently. They're asking me, why don't you eat animal carcasses? And it's like, you eat animal carcasses? It's a much more reasonable question. Why do you eat animal carcasses. And then I have a conversation with the person. And what I try to do is get the conversation to a discussion of the basic issue of integrity. Percy Shelley said, I want no part of any, this says Percy Shelley is my homeboy. Percy Shelley said, I want no part of anything I can't write a pleasant poem about. I'm not a poet, I can't write a pleasant poem about anything. But applied to basic integrity, I like that concept. The vast majority of people would not want to spend an afternoon slitting animals' throats open, right? Even meat eaters don't want to do it. They don't want to see it, they don't want to think about it. So where is the integrity in paying other people to treat animals in a way that you wouldn't do it, you don't want to see it, you don't even want to think about it? And that, I find, is a really effective conversation. People do not want to support this. The last thing I want to say is that we're winning. You know, you've heard a lot of really inspiring talks, so I hope you're going to walk away from this conference with the idea that we're winning, but we really are. In the overall sort of trajectory of social justice movements, it's remarkable to think that there's a photo of this, right? 150 years ago, it was considered to be an acceptable way for human beings to interact with one another, that some humans held other human beings as slaves. 100 years ago, it was acceptable that women were not given a say in governance, and that there was a spirited debate in Congress about whether, if we gave these irrational creatures a say, would the union dissolve? It's more than half of y'all, by the way. So it's interesting to me to think about the fact that Socrates said 2,500 years ago that the unexamined life is not worth living, and that for 2,350 years after that, it was considered to be acceptable, natural, biblical. Those rationalizations sound familiar to you? It was considered to be just the way it is, that humans would hold other humans as slaves, that some humans would be second-class citizens, and really, historically, 150 years, it's that. And we have transformed society in our understanding of how humans should interact with one another. But that's not the challenge, right? To look back 150 years and say, you know, look at those moral reprobates from 150 years ago. How could they have done that? You know, as Peter Singer points out in Animal Liberation, the challenge is to say what's happening today that future generations will look back on with the same sort of moral outrage. I'm convinced it's the way that we treat other animals because we have science on our side, we have ethics on our side. It's really just a matter of educating people and normalizing compassion instead of normalizing blind cruelty. It's going to happen a lot more quickly with all of us going out there into society, recognizing our power, and acting as much as possible, as often as possible, as efficiently as possible on behalf of animal liberation, because advocacy feels flipping awesome, and they're counting on us. Thank you.